Here at List 25, I've covered some scary facts before, but for some reason our fans continue to request more. Yeah, I'm talking about you. You know who you are. Today, I'll be exploring an exorcism gone wrong in the holiest of places, a premonition that mirrored a real-life tragedy, and even some medical mysteries that'll make your skin crawl. So, get comfortable, turn up the volume, but maybe not too loud, and get ready for a dose of honest-to-God chills. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 terrifying real-life facts. 25. An unsuccessful exorcism inside the Vatican. Have you seen The Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe? Crowe's character, Father Gabriel Amorth, wasn't just a Hollywood invention. He was the real-life chief exorcist for the Vatican and claimed to have performed over 160,000 exorcisms. He even had a rather colorful nickname for himself, Satan Buster. Back in 2000, Amorth claimed he faced a demon unlike any other right within the hallowed halls of the Vatican when a seemingly ordinary 19-year-old girl began spewing insults during an audience with none other than Pope John Paul II himself. Alarmed by the girl's behavior, an exorcism was initiated. The Pope reportedly sat with the girl for a tense half hour, attempting to banish the demon. However, according to Amorth, the demon within the girl refused to let her go, even saying, "Not even the head of the church can send me away." How creepy is that? 24. When towns get covered in spiders. In 2013, the residents in the town of Santo Antonio da Platina in Brazil woke up to a sky teeming with Aneurysm maximus, a social spider species that loves to congregate in massive, up to 50,000 strong, numbers. And while you try to get used to the idea of spider rain, you should know that this wasn't an isolated incident. In 2012, Wagga Wagga in Australia had a similar event. Floods displaced millions of wolf spiders and they all moved to town. Now, before our American viewers breathe a sigh of relief, you should know that we have some freaky spiders around, right here closer to home. Just east of Dallas in Lake Tawakoni State Park, the Guatemalan long-jawed spiders love to build enormous webs that can cover up to 600 feet. Oh, and the best part? They can lovingly build it in less than 2 weeks. 23. The Xi'an elevator death. A lot of you are scared of enclosed spaces, and with good reason. Imagine being trapped somewhere small and dark with no way out, no food, no water, no fresh air. Unfortunately, a woman in Xi'an, China lived that nightmare in January 2016. After entering her apartment building elevator, the doors slammed shut, plunging her into darkness. What she didn't know was that the repairman had just shut off the power for the next month. Her remains would only be discovered upon their return. The victim, a woman with a reported mental disability identified only by her surname Wu, had been reported missing, but the search never included the very place where she was trapped, helpless and alone. 22. The Blood House. Can you imagine what it would feel like to get out of the bathtub and step into a pool of blood? This terrifying event happened to 77-year-old Minnie Winston in 1987. And then she realized the pool of blood wasn't limited to just the floor. It was literally streaming from her walls. Completely terrified, Minnie called the police. The authorities swarmed the house searching for a source, a reason for this bloodbath. But there was none. Tests confirmed the blood was human, type O. Yet neither Minnie nor her husband shared that blood type. To this day, the Bleeding Walls case remains one of the world's craziest unsolved mysteries. 21. The Flagellation Festivals. In many cultures, from the ancient Spartans to Christian sects, flagellation, the act of whipping oneself, was a ritual. During the Black Death, a group of Christians formed a self-flogging line to appease God. Even in the Philippines, devotees parade with crucifixes during religious holidays, some scourging themselves with metal rods, all in the name of penance. Shia Muslims, however, take it a step further. In the most extreme cases, participants often whip themselves with blades lashed to chains, carving horrific gashes into their backs. 20. The Nazi soap experiments. We all know that some of humanity's worst moments came from World War II. Unfortunately, the true horrors are never discussed publicly. And I'm not about to. However, I do want to tell you that in 2006, the Gdansk branch of the Commission for the Investigation of Crimes Against the Polish Nation confirmed the production of soap from human fat, after they tested a bar of soap that came from a lot used at the Gdansk Medical Academy during World War II under Professor Rudolf Spanner. While the investigation suggests the soap wasn't manufactured at the institute itself, it was used for cleaning purposes there. The presence of human fat was confirmed through testing, and over 20 new witnesses, including former soldiers, came forward with new information to assist the inquiry. 19. The real final destination. In 1970, David Booth had the same nightmare for 10 nights straight, a terrifying vision of a jetliner crashing in a fiery explosion. It freaked him out so much that he actually called the FAA and told them about it. Now, the FAA probably gets a lot of weird calls, but they listened to Booth's story and figured he was dreaming of a Boeing 727 or a DC-10. Now, here's the crazy part. The very day Booth had his last nightmare, disaster struck. American Airlines Flight 191, a DC-10, took off, and just like in Booth's dream, an engine ripped loose, the plane flipped over, and flames erupted everywhere. All 273 passengers on board died. 18. The Sandy Hook school shooting premonition. Since I'm on the subject of eerie premonitions, here's another one that'll give you goosebumps. In 2012, a little boy named Logan Dreyer attended Sandy Hook Elementary School. At the beginning of December, his mother, Karen, noticed a big change in him. Her happy 5-year-old suddenly started having panic attacks at school. Doctors checked him out, but everything seemed fine. Things got even weirder when the principal tried to calm him down. Logan apparently screamed, "No, it's not a safe place, I'm scared." Over the next 2 weeks, Logan stayed home. And then, on December 14th, the unthinkable happened. A school shooter targeted, shot, and killed 26 people. Karen Dreyer is convinced her son had some kind of premonition about the shooting. And in all honesty, it does kind of make you wonder what kids can sometimes pick up on that we adults miss. 17. Hitler's experiments with nerve agent. In 1936, German scientists accidentally created Tabun, a potent nerve agent, while developing a pesticide. Thankfully, for some reason, Hitler never used this weapon in combat. However, its introduction into our world didn't come without casualties. Approximately 12,000 metric tons of the substance were stocked at a forced labor camp in Dernfurth, Poland. Here, hundreds of prisoners died during its production, either from accidental exposure or deliberate experimentation. As the tide of war turned, Germany attempted a desperate cover-up, even going so far as to destroy the production facilities. But their efforts were in vain. The Soviet Union captured the facilities and continued to develop the nerve agent, marking a significant escalation in the Cold War arms race. 16. The cat that predicted over 100 deaths. Adopted by a nursing home in 2005, Oscar the cat had an uncanny ability. He could predict when someone was about to die. At first, the staff didn't notice. Oscar kept to himself, rarely cuddling with residents. But whenever he did snuggle up to someone, that person often passed away within a few hours. It happened over and over 100 times in fact. Some researchers believe he could smell biochemical changes in dying cells, prompting him to comfort those nearing the end. Oscar passed away in 2022. 15. The people walking free around us. In 1998, two young boys, Mitch Johnson, 13, and Andrew Golden, 11, opened fire outside the Jonesboro Middle School, killing 5 people. This wasn't the first time Johnson had been in trouble. Just a year earlier, he was caught molesting a little girl. He admitted it, but somehow wasn't locked up. For the school shooting, their young age meant little more than a slap on the wrist. Juvenile detention until they turned 21. Crazy, right? This law, meant to protect young offenders, ended up protecting them a bit too much. Both were released in the mid-2000s. Golden passed away in 2019, but Johnson has been in and out of trouble ever since his release. Thankfully, Arkansas has changed its laws after the tragedy to make sure it never happens again. 14. Where is Pedro Lopez? Pedro Lopez isn't some petty thief. He's one of the most notorious serial killers of our time. His victims? Young girls, 9 to 12 years old. He would abduct them, subject them to unthinkable horrors, and then bury their bodies. He was apprehended in Ecuador in 1980. After his arrest, Lopez confessed to over 300 murders in Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia, a number deemed accurate after the discovery of one mass grave that contained 57 bodies. After serving 14 years in prison, he was released for good behavior, but was placed in a mental institution in Colombia. Here, after a mere 3 years, Lopez was deemed cured, and he was released back into society in February 1998. And this is where we go off the dark end, my friends. Lopez visited his mother after his release and immediately proceeded to disappear. He's wanted in connection with new murders, but his current whereabouts remain unknown. 13. Nurses are deadly. Let's face it, hospitals can be scary places, but if you thought needles were the only thing to be scared of, you were sadly mistaken. Nurses should be on the top of your list. One study found that out of every 100 people in a hospital, 2 suffered a preventable adverse drug event. That's a screw up in your meds, people. It's also scary to know that communication breakdowns between nurses and doctors are the 3rd leading cause of death in the US, following heart disease and cancer. And get this, another study linked unhappy nurses with a 23% increase in patient complications and a 2% increase in deaths within 30 days of admission. This may be less pleasant to mention, but over 140 million babies are born every year, and 0.48% out of every million will die after being dropped by a nurse. That is more than 67 babies every year. And let me leave you with this fact. Studies show that 30% of female serial killers were nurses, and they averaged 2 murders every month. But do you know what else is a terrifying fact? The fact that you haven't liked, shared, commented, or subscribed yet. I know, us YouTubers say it all the time. Like, share, comment, subscribe, click that notification bell. But you know what? It really helps the channel. I mean that. It helps us keep doing what we love to bring you what you love. And also, don't forget to check out our socials. 12. The Killing Cave of Phnom Sampeau. Back in the 70s, the Phnom Sampeau caves were used as torture chambers by the Khmer Rouge, and the evidence of their brutality is still there in the form of victims' remains. Glass cases hold some of the skeletons, while nearby, piles of skulls stacked high in chicken wire cages paint a disturbing picture. The layout of the caves themselves was often used for executions, as people were forced through skylights above, plummeting to their deaths on the unforgiving ground below. And here's the truly horrifying part. Some actually survived the fall, were trapped in darkness, and surrounded by the deceased. They faced a slow and agonizing death from starvation and dehydration. As time went on, the piles of bodies grew, creating a grim cushion. The horrifying twist? The more victims there were, the higher the chance of surviving the initial fall, only to face a prolonged and even more gruesome death. 11. A maggot infestation saved a man's life. In 2015, a young Vietnamese worker named Pham Nguyen Lan was in Malaysia when a nasty accident left him with a head injury. Emergency surgery and a titanium plate saved his life, but he soon started experiencing a lot of pain and swelling around the implant site. Thinking it was just a minor infection, he didn't go back to the doctor, but his family decided to take a closer look and discovered a maggot infestation in his head. Luckily for Lan, while the maggots were certainly unwelcome guests, they were actually doing him a massive favor. You see, his head also happened to be infected with flesh-eating bacteria, and the maggots were dining on the dead tissue, preventing the infection from spreading. So in a very gross and bizarre turn of events, the creepy crawlies actually ended up saving Lan's life. 10. Morgellons Disease. Morgellons Disease is a puzzling skin condition that ticks all the boxes for terrifying. Nobody actually knows what it is, how you get it, or how it works in human bodies. So it's left everyone frustrated, to say the least. Some of its symptoms are pretty common: fatigue, rashes, and depression, but others are truly bizarre. People with Morgellons usually report the horrifying sensation of insects crawling under their skin, and then things get worse. Soon after the insect sensations, strange fibers appear under the skin. These fibers are often black and stringy, which has led doctors to debate whether or not the fibers actually originate from the skin, or if they can be explained by repeated itching and contamination by fibers from clothes. 9. The birth of super gonorrhea. The threat of antibiotic resistance is growing, and one particularly concerning example is super gonorrhea. The super strain is incredibly resistant to current antibiotic medicines, making it almost impossible to treat and eradicate. Unlike the other STIs, which come with very specific transmission routes, super gonorrhea can also spread orally, so it's easy to get infected. New cases have been popping up all over the world. 8. The hacked camera community. The internet's dark corners can be unsettling, and a subreddit called r/controllable webcams is probably taking things to a whole new level. Here, users share links to hacked camera feeds, allowing viewers to look into unsuspecting people's lives. From parking lots and offices to, yes, bedrooms, the voyeuristic nature of the content raises some serious ethical and legal concerns. While the moderators do attempt to maintain some control, the very existence of this community highlights the vulnerability of webcams and the ease of which they can be compromised. 7. Another Inhuman Invader. As if our story about the maggot infestation wasn't bad enough, In 2015, doctors at a hospital in Colombia were presented with a critically ill patient. The 41-year-old man, HIV positive and unmedicated, suffered from breathing problems and a tapeworm infection. Further investigations revealed lung tumors. However, these tumors came with a shocking anomaly. As a doctor stated, the tumors resembled cancer, but the cells weren't human. DNA tests confirmed that the tumors were in fact composed of tapeworm cells. The man's compromised immune system, a consequence of his untreated HIV, allowed a rare phenomenon, a non-human form of cancer derived from the tapeworm, to flourish within him. The patient passed away within 72 hours of his diagnosis. 6. Sarcopenia. As if aging wasn't enough of a battle, after 30, your body starts to wage a silent war against itself. We lose between 3 and 5% of our muscle mass every decade, but for some, this turns into a full-blown muscle mutiny known as sarcopenia. In fact, by the time you hit 80, there's a terrifying 11 to 50% chance you could be facing sarcopenia. It weakens your entire musculoskeletal system, making you more susceptible to falls, fractures, and frailty. Now, while sarcopenia sounds like a guaranteed sentence, it's not. If you have the self-discipline to maintain physical activity and a healthy diet, this will be your secret weapon in the fight. So, it's up to you. 5. The Phantom Guardian. Do you believe in ghosts? In 2015, responding to a tip about a submerged car near Spanish Fork, Utah, 2 officers arrived at a grim accident scene. They found an overturned car precariously balanced in the icy river water. Before even reaching the vehicle, they both heard a faint but clear voice calling for help. They approached the vehicle and were stunned. Inside, strapped securely in her car seat, was an 18-month-old baby girl, still alive after 14 hours submerged upside down. The girl's mother, unfortunately, didn't make it. The 18-month-old girl definitely didn't call for help. The officer, shaken by the experience, insisted it wasn't a hallucination. One officer recounted, "It was plain as day. A voice, not a child's voice, simply saying, 'Help me.'" Who or what do you think uttered that life-saving plea in the darkness of the car? 4. Deadly lightning. Did you know that there are an average of around 1.4 billion lightning strikes every year? While most strikes hit open ground, on rare occasions, people get in the way. In fact, lightning claims around 20,000 lives annually. These strikes can be unpredictable and cause bizarre accidents, but perhaps the most unsettling example of lightning's sheer power comes from a tragic event in Norway. In August 2016, a single bolt killed an entire herd of 323 reindeer, proving that nature has the ability to unleash unexpected, horrifying consequences. 3. Locked-in syndrome. Locked-in syndrome, a rare neurological disorder, is a terrifying condition that can leave you fully aware and paralyzed. It can happen after damage to the brainstem, for example, strokes, traumatic brain injuries, or even certain infections. Unlike a coma, you're conscious and can hear, see, and understand everything that's happening around you. The frustration of being unable to respond, to call for help, express your thoughts, or even simply acknowledge a loved one's presence creates a waking nightmare. While some people with LIS can develop communication methods using eye movement or blinking patterns, the constant struggle to break free from this silent prison makes locked-in syndrome one of the most terrifying medical conditions imaginable. 2. All the serial killers. Did you know that according to experts, there are over 2,000 serial killers actively stalking their prey worldwide, with 25 to 50 at large in the US alone? These numbers are just statistically backed estimates, as the true scope remains hidden. The very nature of their crimes, methodical, calculated, makes them incredibly difficult to detect. The person you bump into at the store, the friendly neighbor next door, your favorite nurse, anyone could be a monster in disguise. 1. Somewhere out there, a brain aneurysm is rupturing. Every 18 minutes, a brain aneurysm ruptures somewhere in the world. These ballooning weaknesses in blood vessels can happen to anyone at any age and time. No one is immune. It even strikes down children. These statistics are staggering. It claims nearly 500,000 lives every year, and the attack is often swift and merciless. You might be just going about your day feeling perfectly fine when a blinding headache explodes in your skull. Or perhaps it's the sudden loss of vision, a debilitating weakness. By the time the true horror unfolds, it's usually already too late. And the worst part? You won't even know what hit you. And you know what? That's enough terrifying facts for the day. If you enjoy this spine-tingling exploration of the world around us, then you'll love our previous video, 25 Dark Secrets of Everyday Things, where I discussed how a harmless fungus drove people mad, and how your favorite childhood toy probably had Nazi sympathizers behind it. I even delved into a story that spooked the NSA itself. Interested? To go to that video now, simply click the link right here.